welcome to NewFilmmakers Los Angeles in partnership with Movie Maker magazine. My name is Danny DeLillo, and I'm honored to be with Petyr with the fantastic movie, The Original Shareholder Experience. But for those that haven't seen it, let's take a look at the clip.
It wasn't until I was summoned to the Indigivillas that I saw myself as a part of something bigger. Suddenly I'm connected to the spirits, the universe, Mother Earth himself. I'm where I need to be.
How does partnering with the company make you feel?
Unbelievable. Empowered.
Proud. They ain't all bad to be a shareholder, huh, eh?
Petyr, again, I loved your film. I'm so happy that your film is in our film festival next weekend. Thank you for being here. But for those that haven't seen your film, tell us the brief synopsis.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. It's an honor to be at the festival. Basically, my film is just short about this indigenous sort of television host who has to sort of deal with the complicated aspects of morality and capitalism when her boss is basically asked her to sell this really genocidal product under the auspices of being sort of corporate responsibility initiative. Yeah, it's a satire in the way of Brazil and Hudsucker Proxy and all that. But yeah.
Well, Petyr, I mean, I think your film is so clever. It's got so much depth in it. There's so much to talk about in your film as well. And it's, almost like a cringe satire, but yet reality of what a lot of people face, particularly in indigenous communities around the world. Where the inspiration come for you in this film, and also the great creativity that came behind it, and then turn that into a film.
Right. So at least for the aesthetics in the sort of satire vein, the television vein, that came from a bunch of films I lived in high school. There was a short I saw at the Seattle International Film Festival where I grew up that was this sort of VHS satire, sort of oddball thing. And I knew I wanted to do something in that sort of dimension. But the substantive element came to me, sort of as I was working my way through the entry-level phases of the industry, where I was often put into boardrooms and meetings with executives and people with money who, from my perception, only saw me as sort of diversity and inclusion, a diversity hire, basically, rather than for the actual creative elements that I would pursue, and in some ways saving face for the malevolent aspects of giant corporations. Yeah, and then I sort of conceived of it in 2019, and I spent a year and a half writing it.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the thing is, though, as much as goodness me, you'd like to think it's satire, it's actually a sad truth. Right. Some people that are just not educated enough, and also, again, hiring on your beautiful talents, not on just to tick a box, right? And so I love how you brought that into context, because I think a lot of people could learn from watching your film of how not to do things. You had there's so much imagination that you have in there, Petyr. Like, I was really just enjoying all the the way the TV show was shot, and the whole dynamic, and it was really fascinating to watch cinematically. Did you kind of did you know how you wanted to shoot it? Because it was a really wonderful film to look at as well.
Sort of. I mean, a lot of it was dictated by limitation. We shot it for a very minimal budget, of course, with this sort of ambitious visual language. And so I spent a really long time refining exactly what I wanted, so that we wouldn't spend money and time later on having to figure that out. So it's probably a year. It spent some time in the Sundance Indigenous Lab, where a lot of that work was, what is the language of the film? What aesthetics are you going for? And so I had some sort of idea. We storyboarded it pretty heavily. But yeah, there was a decent amount of it that was actually improvisational. And
well, it was.
Sometimes the crew would have input. Yeah, sometimes the crew would have input about certain shots and things, and I'm not I'm not a total believer in the auteur theory. If somebody has an idea and it's better than my idea, I'll go with that idea. So there was an aspect of that, but it was pretty well produced, I would say.
Is that with your projects, Petyr? Like, I always love the fact I'm always fascinated with the director's dynamic and how they work with their actors. And just by the way, commendment to your cast. They all did a really good job. Do you work with that of all your kind of projects where there's sort of an essence of improvisations, rehearsal? Like, what's your dynamic? And particularly with a film that is satire, that's got that kind of element of it almost feels a surreal kind of environment as well. The way that it's almost dreamlike. How did you go about with this particular project directing?
At least for the performances, because of how sometimes obvious the humor was and how cringy it was, at least on the shooting end of things, we wanted to play it totally straight. We didn't want to sort of lean into the joke at all, because I think there's a danger there of sort of like explaining the joke in the performance. And so, yeah, we played it totally straight. I'm sorry, what was the second part of the question?
No. I was just as a director, like, if you've got a certain sort of way in which you kind of work with your actors too, but also, when you're trying to, like, it's kind of, satire is actually quite it's kind of hard to do. So I was just kind of curious how you articulated what was on the page and then working with your actors as well.
Yeah. So yeah, once again, playing it very straight. With satire, it is a tricky thing, where a lot is riding on the performance. There's a very fine line between like succeeding at satire and having a really good layer of subtext, and then just being totally obvious and boring in a way. And that line is subjective too. So at least on our days, I was very focused on play it like a drama. There are no jokes in here. Your character believes all of these things. They're not winking to the camera. And in terms of crew, it was a similar thing. Like, we shot it very much like a drama. I mean, of course, there were like little things like wide shots to succeed at the joke, stuff like that. Yeah, overall, it was basically treating it like a drama on set.
Yeah.
And then sort of the comedy element will incorporate itself later in the cut, and with the writing that we've sort of become too acclimated with at that point.
Well, the production design was really, really fantastic. In fact, there's a still in there that was the poster image of our festival this month, and it just was really, really amazing. Looking back on this project from either a kind of a production side of things or from just the experience during or before or after, what was the biggest challenge you had in making this project?
I would say the biggest challenge was probably money. Money dictated a lot of it, because it's technically a student film, even though it was, incubated through Sundance, and we got a decent amount of money through Kickstarter. We shot on my university's property with their equipment, stuff like that. And because it's a public university, a lot of our equipment would break as we were going through it. I remember there was a day where we were trying to shoot a few dolly shots, and every single one of our dollies broke. And we had to end up like sort of manufacturing this cardboard surface to put the tripod on, then pull the cardboard. It was a lot of like weird not cutting corners, but I guess creating makeshift solutions to beef up the grandeur of it.
When you pulled it off, we wouldn't have noticed anything, Petyr. Don't even worry. It was all perfect from our end.
Oh my God. Yeah. It looked janky if you were on set. Yeah, I'm glad that doesn't come across. I hope that we succeeded.
And like, listen, goodness me, this was, it was rightfully so, hard to watch and cringy to watch, because unfortunately it's so much truth in it as well, of just how ignorant and uneducated and uninformed and unrelated people can be. And I thought you just hit the mark on that so well. you know, with the style in which you created this. And I'm just curious in that perspective, like, what did you kind of want your audience to take from your film?
That is actually a question I won't answer. We initially, the film had probably 2 or 3 minutes at the end of it. Right after that last frame, we continue the scene and then we see where it goes. And that stayed in there probably until one of the later cuts, when one of my mentors told me that it was a little moralizing. It kind of took the satire out of the thing and was just kind of like preaching to an audience, telling them to think, stuff like that. I really wanted to leave the audience sort of with the ball in their court. Figuring out how to feel for themselves. Like you said, it's very cringy, and that's one response to it. Another feasible response could be, yeah, it's fine, I don't know why they're so mad. Stuff like that. And I wanted to really explore how an audience would react to that, and to the short as a whole.
I think the most important thing is, though, Petyr, you got people talking, and I think that's always the best thing you can have with a film. I think your film is a very, very important film, because as much as, you know, you've kind of, you know, got all these different elements in there that have this sort of dark satire experience, it is actually, you know, kind of dramatic, and it is truth, and it is people's experiences. And I just thought, you know, there's so, hopefully you'll get the depth in which you put the film out there in the first place of what you're trying to convey. And I just think you did a fantastic job with that. I'm really looking forward to seeing up on the big screen at NewFilmmakers LA next week. But all just to finalize on, what is next for you what you working on next, Petyr?
Yeah, I'm in the development process for a couple shorts, as well as a couple of features. This is one of those sort of worlds that I would like to develop into a feature, with sort of a beefed up budget. And I mean, really, initially, this film started as a short when I conceptualized it. The more I started to write it, the more I realized it was something much larger than could be fit into 15 minutes.
I love that.
And so this is like just a piece of what I conceptualized. Yeah, that's kind of my dream, if you will, is to sort of produce a larger version of this. Yeah.
I'm glad, because, you know, again, it's not every film you feel this way, but kind of the world that you created for us, the characters, the way you shot it, I think I would love to see more from what you developed with this short. So I'm excited to hear that as well. And just finishing lastly, for any filmmakers out there that are watching, do you have any piece of advice or anything that you'd share, anything that you go by, you know, as a filmmaker, as a creative artist, that you would like to share with our filmmaking audience to follow in your footsteps, so to speak?
I would say just keep doing the work. At least, like, if you're working on a project and you're in this slump about it, just like keep going with it. Because there was a not insignificant period of production on this where I thought this is like the worst thing that's ever been made. And yeah, and then I kept going, and it's to a place now where I'm proud of it and enjoy it, which is more than I could ask for something that I just made for myself to enjoy. Yeah, just keep going.
I mean, yeah, keep going and enjoy the work that you're doing. And you know, I mean, I love that yours is going to be an expanding world that we're all going to get to see as well. So well done. Well, really looking forward to seeing you next week and having the film at the film festival. Congratulations, and thanks so much. And the whole world will get to see your film on the big screen in LA. So we're looking forward to it.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be coming.